welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're glad you're here to share some bourbon and bond with the boys.
We are the boys.
We're the boys.
Yep, that's us.
I'm Dave.
I'm Nick.
And we're gonna talk Bond. We're going to evaluate, rank, rate
Yes.
every of the Eon produced Bond movies ever.
And along with those, we have aligned different bourbons to go with each movie.
Scientifically.
Yes. Yeah. It's a whole process that we went through.
Carefully selected.
Yeah.
I think the selection process will maybe be more fun than the bourbon.
Yeah. Well, for some of them.
We'll see.
Some of them, it was just, well, I want that one.
Now,
so
let's be
try
honest.
it.
We have a couple that are just trash.
Yeah.
Because they fit.
They have to. Yeah. There was nothing we could do.
But we will warn you
It can't
off
be
those.
avoided, but we'll make the best of it.
Yes.
So
If you're the kind of person that likes to watch two intelligent and interesting people talk about Bond movies while slightly inebriated,
welcome home.
oh, my friend, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. Now, since this is our inaugural episode, first one, we should talk about how we got here and go through our very intricate ranking system that we're going to be using for each of these movies. But I think before we do that, we should talk about the bourbon of the day. What do you think? He's not gonna say
We've been
no.
waiting for this.
If you ever hear Nick say no to bourbon, call me quick.
And here's what we've done. So for the special ones, what we decided we wanted to do was crack them on camera. So we got these in preparation for doing this series.
Some of them we've never tried.
Right. A lot of them we've never tried. So the ones that were special and that had, a certain meaning behind them, we thought, okay, it's going to be important to crack these on camera. So we've been holding on to several of these that are very interesting and very exciting.
Impatient.
And
I've been impatient.
it's been hard. It's been really hard to just watch them up there on the shelf, just begging to be cracked open. But here we are.
Are we going to do this?
Yeah, I think
All right.
so.
I'm going to talk about the selection for today while you do the deed. Yeah. All right. So in this first episode, we're not going to talk about any movie in particular. We're going to talk about how we got here and what the ranking system is that we're using. And so we thought one bourbon to inaugurate this fantastic series you're now roped into. So we have selected Never Say Die Bourbon, which is a true English bourbon. Now, you might say, that's impossible. To officially be bourbon, it has to be made here. Oh, well, wait. Never Say Die Bourbon is fully distilled in Kentucky and shipped across the pond and aged in England. So this is an English bourbon. Now, I'm going to talk about where they got their name. This is a good story. As you can see from the label, there's a horse on the label. Never Say Die was a racehorse many, many moons ago. And this racehorse, his mother was brought from England to Kentucky. And when the horse was born, he wasn't going to make it. And so some genius who was there at the time said, you know what he needs?
Some bourbon.
Bourbon.
Yeah.
They actually gave the little horse a shot of bourbon, and he revived and lived, survived, grew up, became an okay racehorse.
It's basically medicine.
It's medicine. Yeah. This is all medicinal. Everything we're doing is for medicinal purposes. So they finally ship him across the pond, and he is going to compete in their largest derby, right? The Epsom Derby. It's everything the English do, they just call the, right? So like we can't call it the British Open. Why? Because it's just the Open, right? Well, same thing. They just call it the Derby. Meanwhile, somewhere in England, there is a woman named Mona Best who loves the story of Never Say Die. And she hears that the horse is running. She sells her jewelry. She bets everything she has on this horse who wins the Derby at 33-1. So Mona takes her winnings, puts a down payment on this huge Victorian house, got a giant basement in it. She wants to turn it into a rock and roll club, somewhere her son, Pete, can hang out with his buddies. He loves rock and roll, loves music. They're going to have a music club. And they find this band from Liverpool, this local band called the Quarrymen, who are going to be there opening night. They're going to play opening night. They actually help paint and set up the place. They're not having a good time with their drummer right now. And so they actually play opening night at the Coffee Casbah and end up firing the drummer and hiring Mona's son, Pete Best, to be their drummer, who was their drummer until they fired him to hire one Ringo Starr, who was married to a Bond girl we're going to be talking about in about 10 episodes.
Can I ask something really quick?
can
or
ask.
maybe just interject.
No, interject.
You told me that story before, but you didn't tell me her name.
Yeah.
Can we talk about what a great Bond girl name that is?
Mona Best.
That's
would be an
fantastic.
outstanding Bond girl.
That's fantastic.
I know.
Okay.
And at some point during this thing, we are going to discuss just that. Best Bond girl names. Right? So
First, we're going to discuss the cork noise.
let's hear it. Oh, that's not bad. It's a little high pitched, but not bad. That's not a bad cork noise. Okay, so this is a high rye bourbon, right? Mash bill is, let me see, 75% corn, 21% rye, 4% malted barley. So it's going to have those characteristics, supposedly, of both a rye and a bourbon. Yeah, be very careful with that. We might like it.
Yeah.
We're celebrating not just racing history, but rock and roll history. Should we get the nose? Oh, that doesn't smell bad.
Doesn't smell like much at all.
It's got a little smell to it. Isn't that a glorious little sound right there? All right, should we do this?
Yeah.
To Mona. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's got that rye spiciness.
Yeah. It's a little flat.
It's in the middle. It's a little bit flat in the middle.
Yeah.
It's got some kind of floral thing on the back of the tongue. Mm-hmm. Little aftertaste going on.
Yeah.
It's not super complex. It's 95 proof, and you can feel it.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. It does. There's some heat, but it's more of a, like you said, like a rye kind of spice than it is an alcohol burn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like I just drank high proof.
It's more like a rye than a bourbon.
Yeah.
It's not as complicated. It's not really full of flavor in the middle. It's not bad at all. It's eminently drinkable, which we're going to do, by the way.
We're going to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
spoiler alert.
no doubt.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's rye. It tastes like rye.
Yeah. And I don't know. When I have a rye, I expect something different than this. So I wouldn't say, "Oh, that's a rye." I'd just say, "That's just a
Rye-ish.
differently flavored bourbon."
Okay. It's not bad.
No.
It's not bad.
No. I don't know that I would run to the store or just run to the shelves to get that.
Unless you've never had it, the story alone makes it worth trying. But
It
yeah,
does.
It's
Yeah,
not going to
but
make the
you know,
first.
we have it, and I'm not saying to myself, "Oh, now I need to add it to my collection too."
Let's see if it opens up any.
Okay.
We just corked it.
Yeah.
Let's see if it opens up. We'll try it.
So, what I'm going to do is explain our grading criteria.
I hate to interrupt. I don't hate
That's
to interrupt
fine.
you. Let me
Go
just
ahead.
throw something out there. Before we get there, should we tell our diehard fans how we got here?
Sure.
Now, every now and then, which is understating it, Nick and I will start an argument because one of us is stupid enough to say, what was the best blah, blah,
Fill
blah,
in the
blah,
blank.
ever? And we always disagree on some piece of that, right?
Right.
So one time, one of us says to the other one, best Bond girl ever. So, of course, that starts an argument. Now, interestingly, the argument started at number 2. It did not start at number 1, because number 1's obvious. We don't need any ranking system to know who the best Bond girl is.
Who is it, Dave?
It's Solitaire, Jane Seymour.
Okay, thank you.
And we both agreed on that from the jump, but then everything else was a fight.
Right.
So after the fight carries on for a while, we finally get to the place where, well, if we're going to sort of introduce some objective criteria, what are the criteria? And one of the criteria ended up being how good was the movie they were in. Well, that wrecked it all.
Yeah.
Because now we have to figure that out.
Because best Bond girl was Diana Rigg.
Well, she was awfully good.
She was very good.
But she's in a hot,
well acted
piece of trash.
She's
of a movie.
very attractive.
And she can act.
Extremely important character,
yeah.
right? She had everything going for her
Yeah.
except for the movie.
Yeah.
And that's where that ranking system came into play and just wrecked that whole scale.
Poor thing.
Yeah. So from there, after several more arguments and heated debates over sampling different bourbons, we decided that, all right, Dave has a side project where he is still ranking the Bond girls, right? You're still taking all of this into
this is
consideration.
feeding that thing, but it's kind of waiting for us to get through the...
Right. So what we decided to do was, all right, let's take a look at the Bond movies in general and see how those play into the Bond girl rating, right? So this has become a side quest for us, and we developed a set of grading criteria that is pretty in-depth. So let me grab that.
It's thorough. I would call it thorough.
Yes.
And remember, we're not trying to grade it for being a movie. We're trying to grade it for being a Bond movie. So we're thinking of things that are specifically Bond movie things to rate it on.
Right. And because it's rating Bond movies, and these started in the 60s, not all of this is exactly PC, but it's fair to say it belongs in the grading scale.
And probably want to filter this if the children are in the room. But it's possible we could accidentally say something.
We're already drinking, so...
it's just going to get worse. So yeah, let's run through them.
All right. So we have our grading scale. I'm going to put an overlay on the screen so you can take a look at what we're looking at. You can follow along. So it starts off with the plot. And the plot is worth 10 points.
I mean, it's a movie.
Right. So the plot, it doesn't always hold up. Sometimes, it's just outdated and doesn't hold well. There are multiple things that can go into it. What we've tried really hard to do, though, is to be fair and not take the age of the film so much into consideration.
We're giving it a little grace for being situated in its period in history.
Exactly.
Sure. Yes.
So the plot is worth 10 points. Bond is worth 15 points.
Now, doesn't it make sense that if we're going to rate a Bond movie, rating Bond
pretty important
should be up
It's
top,
pretty high up
right?
there. Yeah. So Bond himself is worth 15 points. Now, there are 3 subcategories. There's Bond's acting, right? Can he act himself out of a wet paper bag?
Within the Bond universe.
Right. There is masculinity. Very important. Got to have that.
Are you going to expand on that later?
I'm probably going to let you expand on that later. And then after masculinity is hotness. So is he attractive, right? I mean, Sean Connery, attractive. Roger Moore, very unattractive.
We should probably state up front. Nick
I have a strong bias.
Irrational dislike.
Strong bias.
An irrational dislike
That guy
of Roger
is
Moore.
the worst.
Irrational.
Anyway,
sometimes.
I'm cutting you off. So,
All right, let's talk about the masculinity. So when we originally started, we talked about calling it toxic masculinity because there are things about Bond that wouldn't fly in most environments, and outside of the Bond universe would be like, but inside the Bond universe, there are some things we expect Bond to do. I mean, Bond is
like the bra thing, right?
The bra thing.
The bra thing.
One of the favorite memories I have as a little kid is seeing Bond snatch that bra off that lady and wrap it around her neck, and you're going to tell me what I want to know. I'm going to choke you with your own bra while you're naked.
Probably not acceptable in today's society, but for James Bond,
bad to the bone.
Masculine.
He'll use physical coercion if he needs to get information, which he kills people.
Yeah.
He's the English Judge Dredd.
And again, starting in the 60s, right? A little bit more acceptable, I guess, to beat on women. I don't know.
Yeah, he'll smack that ass as it's walking by. He doesn't care.
Right. So, Bond is 15 points. The villain, okay, is worth 10 points.
Essential to a Bond movie.
You have to.
If you got a lame villain, you got a lame movie.
Now, you can't make the villain equal to Bond. Can't do that.
You can get
Couldn't
close.
be 15 points, but we gave him 10 points.
Yeah.
All right. Next from the villain is the henchman.
Every villain almost every villain has a henchman.
Yes.
And sometimes they are red shirt dudes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They're just there to die.
Right. Just cannon fodder.
Right. But we're looking for a good henchman who's a little bit scary and who can carry out the plot and who may be willing to sleep with Bond right before she tries to kill him. That's extra points.
Next is Bond girls.
Okay. Now this is where it gets serious.
It gets a little dicey here. So stick with us, okay? We'll explain. I'm going to let you explain the 3 types.
Okay. So obviously we're talking about Bond girls, and let me just be clear. You know, Honor Blackman notwithstanding, they didn't pick Bond girls for intellectual prowess first and foremost. They were meant to be attractive. I said that carefully.
You did.
Right?
Well
so
done.
the first category is hotness, right? We always think of Bond girls, and what's the first thing you think of? Oh, she's hot. Hot Bond girl. So the first 5-point category is hotness.
Yeah.
Second 5-point category, she's got it. I can't hate every word that comes out of her mouth. She's got to be able to carry a line. She's got to be able to act at least a little bit. And so 5 points for acting. Many points for acting as there are for hotness. She's got to be able to act. She's in a movie. And finally, this was an interesting one, and it's proven to be effective. We wanted to rate the character she's playing. Sometimes a good actress can get thrown into a terrible role. It's not her fault.
Right.
But if you're going to have a character in a movie, they at least have to make sense a little bit. So we're rating 5 points for the character. Did they develop the character? Does the character make sense? Do we like that they're there?
If you took the character out of the movie, does it do anything
better or
at all?
worse?
Does it have any impact? Do we even care?
Yeah.
Right. So there have been several that are hot, can act. You take them out of the movie,
Makes no
it
difference.
doesn't matter. Still have the
Sadly.
same movie.
Now, we should make a comment here. There have been a couple times, even so far, where we have found extraneous reasons to add or subtract points, right? So we've discovered through our intensive research of James Bond movies that there are typically 3 kinds of Bond girls, and any one Bond movie can have 1 to 3 of these types.
Right.
There's the femme fatale. There's the one that he's trying to rescue from whatever situation she finds her in. Sometimes she's working for the bad guy, sometimes not. Second, there's the partner Bond girl, the one that ends up working with him on whatever it is he's doing. Often she's an agent from another government.
Often he bangs her before they work together.
There's okay, so bangage is, there's potential for all the types.
All over the place.
And the third one's the bad girl, Bond girl, the one that is literally working for the bad guy.
Right. Who he's probably going to bang.
He may, or they may. Right.
Right.
I mean, there's a Bond girl we're going to talk about that we both fell in love with because she is as vicious as Bond is when it comes to this. We loved her.
Yep.
And so what we're doing is we're ranking each one and then taking the average.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Every once in a while we run into an extraneous girl and she doesn't qualify as a Bond girl. She's there. Right. Peripheral.
Yep.
Peripheral. And we have had a situation where there was enough peripheral babeness to warrant a bonus point.
Yep.
But in one case, it actually resulted in a full bonus point.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Bonus point.
Yep.
Not a Bond girl.
Okay. Moving on. Next, we have action. Action is worth 10 points.
It's a Bond movie.
Yeah. There have been several so far that we've watched, and there's just not a whole lot going on. It just drags.
It's surprising.
Yeah.
Almost.
So we're not talking about quality, right? We're not talking about the fights being cut or strangely choreographed here. Right now, we're just talking about action. Are there fights? Are there car chases? Are there spear guns? Are there alligators, right? Speedboat
explosions.
chases. Right. That's what we're talking about when we say action. We're not getting into quality yet. That comes later. This is action. Yeah. How much is going on in this movie? So that is worth 10 points. Now, big big category, the big four.
We struggle with this one a little bit because having watched all of the Bond movies over the course of our lives, we've come to expect certain things, and now we're going back through some of these movies, finding that they didn't always respect those things.
Yes. So the big four are the people you expect to be in the movie. The first being M.
Yes.
The second being Q.
Yes.
The third, Moneypenny.
Yes.
And 4, Felix Leiter.
Felix Leiter.
These are the people you expect, right? These are his buddies. These are his compatriots. They're the ones that are helping him complete his mission. So if they're not around,
Or they're lame.
right, then they get docked.
They get low points.
That's what happens. So each one of those gets 5 points, meaning the big four comes in at a whopping 20 points.
You know, I'm starting to wonder if this is why you have an irrational hatred of Roger Moore.
It's not. No,
the Roger Moore movies.
It's not. It's not.
The Roger Moore movies philosophically steered away from Felix Leiter. He shows up in one and never shows up again.
Roger Moore sucks. Moving on, the credits montage. It's the opening, right?
What things make a Bond movie a Bond movie? You expect this
Yes.
thing to happen. There needs to be a cool song.
Yep.
And there needs to be naked silhouetted girls dancing around. I mean, this is the opening we expect from a Bond movie.
It's the tone that it sets for the entire movie. Now, there's always the opening scene, right?
Before this.
That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're not talking about the opening scene. We're talking about the credits. So, is the song any good? And are the visuals any good? So each of those is worth 10 points.
Yeah.
Because those set the tone for the entire
such
movie.
a big deal.
Those needed to be worth a lot of points.
They really do.
So that's 20 points for just the credits montage alone.
Yeah.
Next is the Bondness of the movie.
And we really just needed a place to put all the little things that
Right.
make up a Bond movie. And so
Right.
this category does that.
Yes. So first we have booze. Bond is known for his vodka martini, shaken not stirred.
Even people who don't watch Bond movies know that.
Exactly. Yes. When that doesn't show up, I expect them to make up for it somehow. Okay?
Yes.
There have been movies where it doesn't show up, but there has been a lot of booze. So it does kind of count in those situations, but it's not getting a full 5 points.
It's not getting 5
We all know what booze means, and if we don't see it in the movie, it's getting docked.
I'm telling you right now, if nowhere in the movie does Bond order or maybe potentially drink a vodka martini shaken and not stirred, it's probably not getting 5 points. It just isn't.
Yeah. I think we have done it for one or two just because there was so much alcohol. None of it was the vodka martini, but there was enough that it kind of canceled out. But generally speaking, if that doesn't show up,
Come on, man.
or I'll go this far, if the Vesper doesn't show up, if either one of those two don't show up,
It's tough to
problems.
score 5.
Yeah,
Yep.
problems.
That's true.
Next comes quotability. This is just the one-liners, right? And I don't want the crap one-liners that are like being spewed from a clown. I don't want those. I want the one-liners.
Irrational.
I want the one-liners that are going to stick with me and that I can use day in and day out. And when I drop them into a conversation, someone's going to go, "Wow, that's a man of culture right there," because they know that's from the Bond movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want the ones that have stuck with me through the years.
And the good one. I mean,
Yeah.
the good, you expect them, right?
Right.
When he checks somebody off a bridge, you expect him to say something witty.
Yes. Not something stupid. So that's 5 points right there. Gadgets gets another 5 points. What kind of stuff does he have? Does his watch turn into a super magnet? Does he have a saw blade on it?
Badass briefcase.
That briefcase is cool.
Yeah.
That's about the only cool part of that movie. But
what's
that's
a-
okay.
What's a Bond movie without the gadgets? We expect the gadgets.
the
we
gadgets
expect
have
the
to be
gadgets,
there.
and we expect Q to set him up with the gadgets.
Yes.
right?
And
That's part of
when that
Bond.
doesn't happen, docked points. Yeah. Next comes locations. There have been several that are iconic movies that are really set in one place, maybe two places.
It'd have to be a super cool place.
Yeah. I want to see him going around the world, chasing villains, chasing babes,
Because the
and
threat's
going to the
worldwide.
cool places.
Yes.
Right? If he's not going to cool places,
Lame.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So
Docked.
that is worth 5 points.
Yep.
Next comes the car. This is a point of contention.
Okay. We've had some trouble with this one.
We haven't had trouble. We've had disagreements. And
Not terrible. I mean, we've had worse disagreements.
we
on
have,
this.
but this is one that I expected a little bit more support from you.
Well, we expect a certain car. There's
We
a certain
expect the
car we
Aston.
expect.
Yep, we expect the
Everybody
Aston.
expects him to be in the Aston.
If the Aston isn't there, it's immediately getting docked points. There's no two ways about it for me.
And we agree on that.
Yeah. Now, there are cars in several of the movies that are not the Aston, but they are the Bond car for that movie. And that's
Cool.
where
There's
we've kind of
coolness.
gotten caught up.
Well, the
right?
question then is how much does
How
it
much
get
do you
docked,
dock it?
Right?
Right.
So if he shows up, for example, in a Lotus Esprit, you're immediately saying, "Oh, that's 2 points." But then the Lotus Esprit turns into a submarine. Oh, now how many points does that get? Is it worth a full 5? It's not an Aston. So these are the questions that we've had.
Yeah. Next comes the X Factor. The X Factor is just a place really for us to say how much did this movie resonate with us.
Yeah.
Does it have a lot of nostalgia? Do I come away from it feeling fun? Do I hate this? Like what
Fun memories
what
when you
has
were younger?
stuck with me after 30 some years of watching Bond? What do I still want to go back and watch again?
Yep.
Right. So X Factor is worth 10 points. And again, kind of arbitrary, right?
Yeah.
It's just what gets you right in the feels and what do you want to give it points for?
Well, I think we've struggled with this one a little bit, and not because of disagreement so much, but because of we're still trying to figure out what is X Factor, right? How do we qualify something as an X Factor, and how many points does something deserve? So we're struggling through exactly how that rating is going to work. So you'll see us argue about that, but it really comes from how do we do X Factor?
Yeah.
What goes into X Factor?
Yeah. Okay, and the last one is production quality.
Yeah.
Production quality, again, we've tried to be fair with the earlier movies, right? So obviously the technology wasn't there, the CGI wasn't there. There were lots of different things that they tried to make happen and put on screen, and it does not carry over. Yeah. Some of the early fight scenes, they did quick speed camera work, right?
Yes.
So they did a
try to
slow
make it look
motion
better.
fight scene and then sped up the playback, and that's how they tried to make a cool looking fight.
Yeah, it's not cool.
It's not cool. We still gave some points because they were doing what was available to them, but that's where they get hit. Is that explosion looked like a bag of ass? Production quality is going down.
Yeah. Or if they make a scene that's supposed to be serious, and it's so comical, you hate everyone you've ever met, and question your life.
And question why he would be cast as Bond.
It's irrational. His hatred is irrational.
So that rounds us out and gives us a total of 150 points. That's all I've got.
Feels like a time for me to jump in.
Yeah.
Right. I have 2 things I want to tack onto that. First, my glass is empty, so I need the bartender to step it up. And second, what you're gonna experience here is an evolution of the rules on the fly, right? So we're gonna rate each one of these movies based on this 150 point scale. And every movie at the end of this process will be ranked from first to last based on the number of points that they received. But when it comes to ranking them in order of our favorites, I'm already starting to realize that there are some movies that might not have scored quite as high that I still like better.
Yeah. There's a point where we say to each other, we're surprised at how well something scored for how much we were enjoying it.
Right.
And that's when we can take that opportunity and look at, okay, well, where was it missing pieces? And a lot of times what we've seen so far is it comes down to the big 4, and it comes down to the Bondness of the movie. If the car is missing, if there's no booze,
You can
etc.
lose points right there.
So a lot of the movies that we've come across have those little things. They don't score well,
Right.
But because they have them, and the
They're
other
more
movie that we
enjoyable.
watched didn't have them at all,
Yeah.
but had high X factor and high production quality and top ranking plot and top ranking Bond, right? It had all of those.
Let's be
because
honest.
it was missing a certain few things,
Let's be honest.
it's the score.
You also have the problem of her royal hotness, Diana Rigg. Right? So Diana Rigg suffered from being in just a wet, hot
Dumpster fire.
mess of a
Somehow
trashy movie.
a dumpster fire that was also wet and hot garbage.
However, she's so awesome. She actually causes the movie to score more points than it deserves
Yes.
just by having her in it.
Yeah, exactly right.
So we're going to run into a lot of those situations where we go, yeah, it scored a little higher, but it's trash. We don't like it.
I don't know that we're going to run into a lot of those.
Occasional. Did I say a lot? Occasional.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're occasional.
Right. Not many.
No.
I think the ones that are standing out in our brains, and we all know, if you're here, you probably know, the ones that are standing out in your brain as hot garbage, we're going to rate
Those
them
are
as
the
hot
ones.
garbage.
Those
Yeah.
are the ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, Nick and I don't want to suggest at all that we're right. I mean, we are, but
We
we
are.
don't want to suggest that, even though
We're
it's
not
true.
going to suggest. I'll outright say it. I mean, so much has gone into this that there's no way we could possibly be wrong. So, again, we're happy that you're joining us, right? And
Couple of rules.
this is so much better when it hasn't been sitting in ice.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. When it's fresh, right?
Oh, you know what? I would strongly recommend that. So we typically like it over ice.
I'd
Like
try
the
this.
ice to kinda mellow
I'd
it
try
out.
this neat.
I would recommend that too. I would recommend
Yeah.
if you're going to give this one
At
a
least
shot.
give it a shot first.
Yeah.
That we might have.
Tastes like jolly old England a little bit.
I don't know. We might have screwed something up.
No, I don't think so. I think we're... Do we want to try it? Are we willing to...
Is there a?
Should we try it?
Yeah. How about? No. No. I'm gonna cut here.
This is a public service that we're doing for you, right? We don't want you going and buying a nice bourbon and then being disappointed because you drank it wrong.
Right.
And so we're going to now sample the Never Say Die neat
It's for science.
to prove
Yeah.
Nick's theory, right? So while he's pouring, I'm going to say a couple things, couple of unusual elements about the series we're going to go through. We're going to start with Dr. No, and each episode will cover one Bond movie, and we're going to work chronologically by release date, right? So we're going to start with Dr. No, 1962, and then we're going to go movie by movie by movie and work through the whole series. Now, when I say whole series, another rule is we're only evaluating real Bond movies, which means Bond movies produced by Eon and our good friend Albert. There are two movies that have the character of James Bond in them and were not produced by Eon Pictures, namely 1967's Casino Royale and
Isn't that Peter Sellers?
That is Peter Sellers.
Movie sucks.
That was a mess.
Movie sucks.
That's
but
bad.
not as hard as
1983's Never Say Never Again, which is a completely unnecessary remake of Thunderball starring older Sean Connery that I think regretted
yeah,
leaving the
Yeah.
Bond series when he did because somebody else did it.
and did it so badly. Anyway, for science,
For science. For you. We just do this for you. This is
yeah,
for you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And instead of our normal greeting, cheers, we will say cheers because this is all very English. So cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, well, that's obviously true. It's still
gotta
not
be neat.
great,
It's got to be,
but
neat.
it's better.
yeah. This is a ton better.
Listen, I will say definitively that it's good.
Yeah.
It's not great. This is not going to land on our list
No,
of favorite
but
bourbons.
we fucked up. We should have done this.
We should have
right
done
off
it.
the bat.
No, No.
Yep.
It's fine for us to throw ice in it. You drink bourbon the way you drink bourbon, and you should try every bourbon that way. And if it doesn't taste quite right, then you try it a different way to see.
Or you go with it neat. If you don't like it, try it with ice, and that opens things up.
We're not making that a rule.
That's the rule.
We're not going to make it a rule.
It's the rule.
He thinks we're going to make it a rule.
Starting now,
It might be half a rule.
starting now, when we try these, we're starting off neat, and we'll have our ice cubes. It's
So,
just the way of the world.
I'm
It's how it's going
hoping
to work.
that in addition to giving you a preview of some of the fights you can expect, this is nothing.
No.
We're going to argue about stuff. I hope you can also see that from the beginning of an episode to the end of an episode, we will slowly become slightly more inebriated.
Some of us have been practicing a long time for this.
Sure,
So,
but my hope is that it adds character to the presentation. I mean, we've gone to a lot of effort to present ourselves
yeah.
in a certain way, and a lot of that has to do with
Being booze
Bourbon.
scientists. Bourbon scientists. Should get lab coats.
and we ought to apologize because again, we're going to try some bourbons. We're going to tell you, we were serious about this bourbon, and then there's some bourbons that we're going to try, and we already know they're going to suck.
And I apologize for nothing. Again, this is for the people.
It's a personal.
Yeah.
It's a personal service. It's a personal service. It's a public service that we provide.
Yeah.
Should we give away what's happening in the next episode as an example of what we're talking about?
We can do that.
So in the next episode, we are going to launch into our evaluation of the very first official James Bond movie, Dr. No, starring
Sean
Sean
Connery.
Connery. Right?
Best Bond.
And
I'm saying it right now. Best Bond.
we worked very hard to find a bourbon that would go with Dr. No. And unfortunately, bourbon in general, in fact, spirits in general, brown liquor, and no, the word no, they don't really go together. So we did find the exact perfect bourbon to drink for our next episode. Yes, you're looking at the single cheapest piece of trash that we will be sampling in this entire series.
We'll never have something like this again. We've guaranteed it. But
However,
it was too good to pass
and we're
up.
not going to say why until the next episode. So if you don't know why we would choose Jim Beam Honey to drink while discussing Dr. No, you need to go watch Dr. No
Yeah.
because it's kind of obvious.
Yeah. And, we've, like we said, or at least alluded to earlier, we went to some great lengths. And I'm being serious. We went in depth with these and tried to figure out, okay, what really applies and what would be fun, what would tell the story.
You can see the
right?
hard work up here.
Yeah. So this one was the low-hanging fruit, and it just couldn't be missed. So we will be doing this one. This one, yeah, it's shot glasses for this.
And we're going to need
Little plastic red Solo Cup shot glasses for this.
we might have some.
Just
we're going to need to find a Swiss toast for next time so that we can toast Jim Beam Honey.
I'm good without that.
Okay.
You can do it.
So, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This has been fun.
I hope you're enjoying your Never Say Die bourbon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a really fun series. And I'm looking forward to cracking more of these bottles open, seeing what they got in store for us.
Yep. Should be an interesting adventure.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to? Yes.
Oh,
Drink responsibly.
yes, absolutely.
Don't drink and then drive. Uber somebody. Call us. We'll come get you. Just Uber somebody.
Yeah.
Drink
Don't call us.
responsibility.
Don't call us. We're not going to come get you.
Drink responsibility. Drink responsibility.
Yeah.
It's a personal service.
Yeah. With great
No,
bourbon,
seriously.
With great bourbon comes great responsibility.
In all seriousness, I want you to be responsible with this. This is the most dangerous thing we've got in the room. So be responsible.
All right. Until next time, we're the boys with Bourbon and Bond. Cheers.
Cheers.